but I'm going to start recording now. So uh, we will have time at the end of Jamie's reading for some questions and answers as well that you can post in the chat, and I'll try to moderate those and make sure that we hear them out loud as well. So my name, for those of you who don't know, is Dr. Will Donnelly. I'm an associate professor in Berry College's Department of English, Rhetoric, and Writing. And I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. This reading series wouldn't be possible without the generous support of people like yourselves. Thank you so much to any of you who may have donated already to help make this a reality. And if you haven't and you'd like to, please consider speaking either to me or Dr. Sandy Meek or Dr. Clint Peters at some point about making a donation for the future. As I said before, I'll post a link a little bit later to the survey. Do be aware that this process is a little bit slower. It could take a couple of weeks to get you the credit, but we'll get it to you. And now, for our visiting author, David James Poissant. Jamie, as so many of us know him, graduated from Berry College back in 2001. And he's told me before too, including earlier today, that even before that, before he was here, back when Jamie was very young, he was not an avid reader. He didn't enjoy it so much. He said, although something changed when he was in his teens, and by the time he graduated from Berry, he was an English major and a secondary education minor. I didn't teach here when Jamie was a student. I was a student myself at that time at another school, but my colleagues who had the pleasure of working with Jamie as an undergraduate have told me and will tell you, if you ask them, that Jamie was as attentive, as astute, and as artful a reader as they had ever known at his age. It's some writers I know have been enthusiastic readers since they first learned to decode the alphabet, but I think there's something valuable that comes with work by authors who had to learn first to enjoy reading and writing before they themselves dove more deeply into those activities. The desire to learn in the first place is evidence of an experience of discovery, and the resulting effort, practice, commitment, joy can create for the learner something entirely new and beautiful. In Jamie's prose, we can see the fruits of his own discovery of literature and of his years of subsequent hard work in the form of complex characters whose lives are so intriguing that when we finish their narratives, we hate to leave them behind. And we can also see the care with language that, again, is learned, practiced, and wrought by an author who's attentive to sound and to the empathetic sensory experience, the art really, that we as readers engage in hand and mind with any author. We knew all of this about Jamie already when he published his collection of short stories, The Heaven of Animals, back in 2014. And when he read from that book right here at Berry in the college chapel. What we'll hear tonight, though, will acquaint us with his skills as a novelist, since his debut novel, Lake Life, was released just this past July. And by the way, both of these books will soon be available for purchase in Berry College's Shipyard, the bookstore, with autographed book plates inside. So we'll get those pretty soon. Lake Life, though, the novel, is intricate and carefully crafted, giving us an intimate look at a family, the Starlings, just as one chapter of their lives closes and a new one is about to unfold. I won't say much about the book here since Jamie's going to read some from it this evening, but I feel certain that, like me, you'll be in awe by the end. David James Poissant is, of course, the author of Lake Life from Simon & Schuster in 2020, which was a New York Times Editor's Choice selection, a Publisher's Weekly summer read, and a Million's most anticipated book of 2020. His story collection, The Heaven of Animals, was a winner of the GLCA New Writers Award and a Florida Book Award, a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize, and was long listed for the Penn Robert W. Bingham Prize. His stories and essays have appeared in the Atlantic Monthly, the Chicago Tribune, the New York Times, One Story, Ploughshares, the Southern Review, and in numerous textbooks and anthologies, including New Stories from the South, Best New American Voices, and Best American Experimental Writing. His books are in print in 6 languages, and he teaches at the MFA Program in Creative Writing at the University of Central Florida and lives in Orlando, where he's broadcasting from tonight, with his wife and daughters. Now, please help me to welcome the namesake of the David James Poissant Endowed Creative Prose Series, Barry College alumnus, David James Jamie Poissant. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? I'm assuming if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Will. Yeah, this is wild. I wish I could be there with y'all. I'm glad I'm not there. I want everyone to stay safe. Please, please, y'all, keep wearing your masks. Please stay socially distant. Please stay healthy. It's so important for the good of our country. And I'm so proud of all of you as students for giving up a year your education the way that you might expected to approach it for the good of all and for the safety of all. Just keep wearing the masks and doing the right thing, and we're all proud of you. Hang in there. I know it's really tough and it's not easy. But thank you again for having me. This is always an honor. I was floored and delighted when Dr. Meek asked me 7 years ago if they could name this reading series after me. I of course said yes, and it's doubly fun to be able to then read for the series in my own name, and it's an honor, and it's an honor most of all to be a cultural events credit, to be advertised on the Stallwell Weekly. I love Barry. I miss being a Barry student, and I love being a part of this continuing culture and education at Barry. So I want to leave time at the end for questions and to talk, but I am going to read, I think, 2 chapters from the novel. I'm going to read the opening chapter from Lake Life, and then I'm going to skip ahead and read a very short chapter, which is, I think I'm going to read chapter 4 from the novel. So the novel Lake Life for me grew out of 2 short stories. I had written a couple of short stories. They appear in my first book, The Heaven of Animals, and they concern the characters of Richard and Lisa Starling. These stories took place in the 80s, and these characters had lost their daughter, June, to SIDS. It's not an experience that I've had to endure, but it is an experience I know some couples who have, and I can't think of much worse in life than losing a child. And I was intrigued by this, and I wanted to write about it. The premise of both of those stories questioned, can a marriage survive such a loss? And in many cases, it cannot. In the case of my 2 stories, both times as I kept writing about these characters, I found that their marriage did survive, but I wanted to skip ahead. And so I skipped ahead 30 years. And at this point, the novel picks up 30 years after those stories. And the parents have 2 grown sons, Michael and Thad. And they're retiring academics from Cornell University, and they've invited their 2 sons to spend the weekend with them at their lake house in North Carolina. And when the sons get there, they drop this bombshell that this lake house, this double wide trailer that's been in their family for years, is suddenly for sale. And the sons want to kind of get to the bottom of why this is. So that's the premise for Lake Life, and I will now just begin with chapter 1. The novel has 6 point of view characters: the mother and the father, the 2 sons, and the sons' partners. And the points of view switch over the course of the book. So chapter 1 that I'll be reading is from Michael's point of view, the eldest son's point of view. And then I will pick up a few chapters later with Diane, Michael's wife. So this is chapter 1 from Lake Life. The boy on the back of the boat laughing, the sky, pewter stamped and threatening rain. Michael Starling, age 33, warm on his father's boat, watches the other boat, the boy, the bay. Oh, sorry. Okay, I got distracted by the chat box. I will not look at that anymore. My bad. Michael Starling, age 33, warm on his father's boat, watches the other boat, the boy, the bay, the water that will never be his because Michael's parents are selling the house. Yesterday, they arrived, Michael and Diane, Jake and Thad, and were given the news: Richard and Lisa Starling will not be retiring to the lake. In a week, the Starling family summer home will be sold so that Michael and Thad's parents may retire instead to a pocket of Florida shore that screams margaritas and sand and all things distinctly un-Starling. This decision, it's not like Michael's parents. They're not Florida people. They're ex-hippies, academics. They're lovers of cold mountain lakes and clear, cool streams, of trees that change color in the fall. Their summers are North Carolina summers, starry skies and the converted double-wide trailer the family affectionately calls its cabin in the woods. What has become of Michael's parents? Who are these brave fools who splash before him, bobbing in swimsuits and inner tubes in the calm waters of a Lake Christopher summer day? On shore, a heron picks through reeds for fish. Above, clouds cover and uncover the sun. A morning on the lake, sandwiches, swimming. This was the Starling's plan before the rogue vessel arrived, unzipping the water behind it, never mind swimmers or the bay's enforced no wake speed. The boat dropped anchor too close, and the man at the wheel uncovered his head and waved with a hat, a captain's hat, from the deck. He whooped and spat a wad of tobacco overboard, then turned up his music very loud. This is not good lake etiquette. This is not done. Lake Christopher is not a party lake, and this is not a noisy bay. Longtime residents work hard to keep it that way, having survived decades of development and two challenges, one public, one corporate, of eminent domain. The interloper boat blasts Jimmy Buffett, the party barge stenciled pink along its side. Its pontoons gleam gray under a gray sky. Michael's father doesn't seem to mind. Join us, he calls to the man with the captain's hat. Then everyone from the party barge is in the water, all but the boy, swimmer's ear, his mother says, ashamed, and his older sister left aboard to watch him. Soon, though, the sister is under the canopy on her back on the deck of the boat. Her eyes are closed, earbuds in. Michael watches the boy and wants a drink. The boy is 4, maybe 5. Where the boy's biceps should be are pumpkin-colored water wings. He moves to the outboard motor, then straddles the cover, a jockey in silver swim trunks. His horse is tattooed Evinrude, his racetrack the sun-dappled water in his wake. Giddy up, he screams. Some might find this cute. Michael does not. The inflatables bulge like blood pressure cuffs around the boy's arms. One hand releases an invisible rein, and the boy minds a bag of Cheetos in his lap. He turns his head to observe his sister in the boat, his parents swimming 50 yards away. Michael follows the boy's line of sight. When he looks back, he finds a middle finger, the signature neon of Cheetos, raised in Michael's direction. Michael shuts his eyes. Why is he watching over this kid? Michael doesn't even like kids. He opens his eyes and the boy sticks out his tongue. Hey, Michael wants to call to the negligent parents. Your shitty kid is giving me the finger, and your other shitty kid is asleep. Michael should be swimming, but his head has bats in it. Sobriety for Michael is wings in the skull. It's echolocation behind the eyes. He needs vodka, but this morning he woke to an empty orange juice jug and no way to sneak liquor undetected onto the boat. His family will put up with a lot from him, but not vodka before noon. The boy raises the chip bag to his mouth and his chin and chest are dusted orange. Then he drops the bag into the lake and stares at Michael, daring him to speak. It's a new sensation being bullied by a child, and Michael can't say he cares for it. He cradles his head. He misses his liquor cabinet. He doesn't miss his house. He'd rather be here at his parents' house than back in Texas. He'd spent every summer on this lake since he was 2, and if there's a place he feels at peace, it's here. The boy on the boat draws himself to his knees and looks over the motor cover's edge. The boy's family, they aren't from here. Michael had them pegged for out-of-towners, but out-of-towners pilot marina rentals, and this is no marina rental. This pontoon is an Avalon Ambassador, 90K on a good day, a watercraft that makes the Starling's 6-seat fishing boat the seafaring equivalent of Tom Hanks' Castaway Raft. Michael's father christened their boat the Sea Cow, hand-painting the name on the gunwale in blue house paint that 30 years later has faded to a wavery cow. No, these people, the mother with her Dolce & Gabbana sunglasses, the father with his faux naval captain's cap, they aren't locals or vacationers. Clearly, they're newly minted lake house owners breaking in the captain's midlife crisis present to himself. Even as the ambassador entered the bay, the mother was probably cutting price tags from the stack of towels at her side. These are loud people who loudly flash their wealth around. To Michael, these people are everything that is wrong with America in 2018. Speakers thump, guitars strum, and for the love of all that is holy, would someone get Jimmy Buffett a cheeseburger already? At the shoreline, the heron lunges and comes up with mud. On the boat, the girl who's supposed to be watching her brother has definitely fallen asleep. She's young, late teens, bikinied, body toned and tan. She's roughly
Sorry about that, everyone. I think Jamie is logging out and logging back in. He just had some technical difficulties there. He'll be right back. Some folks in chat are asking about the survey. Towards the end of tonight's program, I'm going to post a link to that in the chat itself. So just keep an eye on that. And it'll be there in just a little while. Jamie? I think you're muted.
There we go. Okay. Wow. Sorry about that.
No worries. It's okay.
That was bound to happen one of these days. All right. What was the last thing I read before I froze?
Gosh. I got so distracted by it that it's hard to keep up.
Oh, the sister. Okay. We're on the sister. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the part about Jimmy Buffett.
All right. I'm so sorry about that. Thank you all. Thanks for putting up with technology here. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. All right. Let's try this. Take two. Okay. Would someone get Jimmy Buffett a cheeseburger already? At the shoreline, the heron lunges and comes up with mud. On the other boat, the girl who's supposed to be watching her brother is definitely asleep. She's young, late teens, bikinied, body toned and tan. She's roughly the age and shape Diane was when she and Michael met here in this bay 15 summers ago. The boy leaves his knees. He's squatting on the motor now. His sister shifts in sleep, and it occurs to Michael that these siblings are far enough apart in age that the boy might be a mistake. Perhaps the accident waiting to happen has been an accident all his life. The first one you smother, the other, he's heard, raise themselves. Michael doesn't want a first one, never did. That was their agreement. That was always the agreement. Diane floats on a raft in blue water, belly up. She won't show for a few weeks, though sometimes Michael swears he sees the hint of something, a contour. Excuse me. His wife isn't large, but she's no longer the girl on the boat. He wishes she were, and wishing knows this makes him hashtag something or other. He doesn't want to be whatever wanting a younger, fitter wife makes him, but wanting not to be won't ease the want. He misses youth. He misses his wife the way she was. Does this make him sexist? His mother would say yes. His father would say no. Thad, his brother, would not care, and Jake wouldn't know what Michael was talking about. Jake, Thad's rich, attractive boyfriend, is young. He's naive. He lives in New York and makes paintings for other rich, attractive people who live in New York. As far as Michael can tell, Jake's interest in other people extends only as far as the dollar signs attached to his canvases. In the water, Jake and Thad toss a football. Michael's father and the captain laugh on water noodles. The mothers tread water, talking, Diane between them on her raft. The girl on the pontoon boat sits up. She says something to her brother that Michael can't hear over the Jimmy Buffett music. She pokes at her phone a minute, then lowers the phone, lies down, and shuts her eyes. From her raft, Diane won't look at Michael. For 15 years, they were so happy, happy enough, content at least before Diane upended everything. People change, she said, but Michael's not so sure. Did Diane change, or did she trick him? Is this, the pregnancy, what she wanted all along? Michael moves to his father's chair at the helm and flips on the fish finder. The depth here measures 60 feet. At the 50-foot mark, something big drifts gray across the screen. A catfish, maybe, or a tree branch settling into underwater rot. His mother adjusts her hat, the cancer hat she calls it, an attempt at levity that every time makes Michael cringe. Probably she's telling the other mother about the skin cancer she beat. Again, Michael thinks, moving to Florida, seriously. The bats in his head cavort. Soon his hands will shake. He really, really, really needs a drink. The boy perched on the motor flips him off again. The sister's earbuds have popped out and the mouth is slack with sleep. The heron in the reeds gives up and lifts off fishless. The boy watches and Michael follows the boy's eyes following the bird. The boy smiles, he stands. And then he's overboard. His body tugs him under and the water wings rocket from his arms like champagne corks. A hand breaks the surface, slaps, but the floats slither amphibious from his grasp and the hand does not break the surface a second time. And only Michael has seen the boy stand, then fall, the seat of his swim trunks hitting the shell of the outboard motor hard, seen him slip over the side, seen in the eyes of the child, water below and sun above, a transmission, one word telegraphed from boy to man, and that word was please. Michael rises, kicks off his shoes and sheds his shirt. He calls to the others. A cry he can't be sure is heard over the music blasting from the boat. He dives and swims. He turns his face to take a breath and calls for help again. But he cannot stop. He cannot break his stride. There is no splashing ahead, no hands. 3 more strokes and Michael is close enough. He takes a breath and dives. He's seeking silver swim trunks, teeth, anything that might catch light in the belly of a lake. But 10 feet down, the light is scarce, the water turned to murk. He pinches his nose, pushes air from his ears to equalize the pressure. 15 feet, 20, blind but grasping water in fistfuls. But no, boy, come on, he thinks. He tunnels, he pulls. How deep is he? How fast does a body sink? The light is gone, and the water grows colder the deeper he goes. Whatever happens, he must not lose track of up and down. In high school, he could swim and hold his breath for a minute at a time, but high school was a long time ago. His ears throb, his lungs are lit coals. Wait too long and he'll take a breath reflexively. He cannot be underwater when that happens. He has to surface soon, surface or drown, except a whisper, the dance of something just out of reach, swim trunks fluttering, the pink of fingernails. Either the boy is below or Michael is dead and dreaming this. And then he has the hand. He can't see it, can't make out the boy's hand in his own, but he has it. The hand is there, and it is good. It's the hand he can swim with. He'll rise and hold the hand and not let go. Later, in the hospital, Michael will wonder. Say he'd had a drink that morning just to calm him down. Say the shock of his parents' revelation, the house for sale, had not led him to drink so much the night before. He might have held on tighter, risen true, but that isn't what happens. What happens is that Michael kicks the boy. He doesn't mean to, but a body underwater isn't weightless, and swimming with one arm is hard to do. The boy's body drags. It is kicked, and just like that, the hand is gone. He exhales, but there's no air left to leave his lungs. He's swimming the wrong way. The boy is below. Why then does Michael rise? He cannot rise without the child. He must turn back, but his body will not let him. Something in him has taken over, and the something in him wants to live. He kicks and claws, but there is no light, impossible to gauge direction without the compass of the sun. Then a vague illumination, an object passing overhead. He's heard stories, catfish the size of zeppelins, sturgeon armored like gators 10 feet long. Unless the thing he sees is his soul rising, leaving him behind. No, he is alive. He lives, and he is swimming. The fish or soul, it grows, and he swims toward it. He's lost all sense of distance, space, and time. All dimensions are water. Fireworks go off behind his eyes, and a siren screams for him to breathe. Breathe, then, he thinks. Join the boy. Be done with this. Except that Michael's life is not his own. He is a father. His life is marked by that which is in bloom. This truth hits him with a force so great he hardly notices his head striking the bottom of the boat. All is water, then light, then air. He coughs, he gasps, and throws up. He breathes. Above him, the girl is screaming. Her brother is at the bottom of the lake. Surely by now he rests. Surely he's stopped fighting, stopped water calling his sister's name. Michael tastes salt. The salt is blood, and the blood is his. He cannot dive again. He dives again, he'll die. He is a father. His life is not his own. Beyond the boat, others fling themselves from rafts and swim to him. And in the distance, wings, severed from their body, spin, orange and current caught. They orbit each other, knowing. They tumble, ocular, with water's awful wink. So I'm going to pick up right after that scene with chapter 4, and this moves us into the ambulance, and this is told from Diane's point of view. This is Michael's wife, who was on the raft in the last scene. Diane Maddox exhales. Diane Maddox, who traded Tennessee for Texas. Diane Maddox, whose parents are divorced. Diane Maddox, who married Michael 10 years ago and wouldn't take her husband's name. Diane Maddox, who carries a child inside of her. Diane Maddox, who had an abortion in high school and who does not regret that choice, but who is not in favor of making that choice a second time. Diane Maddox, who went to school to be a painter before settling for being an art teacher. Diane Maddox, who wonders whether 33 is too early for a midlife crisis. Were women said to have those, and if those meant more than a red motorcycle or the affair to go with it? Diane Maddox, who has been reassessing her infinitesimal place in the cruel and sideways pressing world. Diane Maddox, who likes dangly earrings. Diane Maddox, who has always longed to visit Reykjavik. Diane Maddox, who grew up watching Mad About You and wanted to be Helen Hunt. Diane Maddox, who in 8th grade cried through the Mad About You finale, cried over the fact that Paul and Jamie were not together anymore. They would give it another try, the way Diane's parents gave it another try too many times to count. Giving it another try code for the pain a daughter feels when some mornings dad is there eating Cheerios, and some mornings mom says, I hope he drives that thing off a bridge. Diane Maddox, who is unhappy, but for whom divorce does not feel like an option, whether to prove something to her parents or to Mad About You, she isn't sure. Diane Maddox, who wonders whether things would have gone better had she taken her husband's name, though, of course, a name can't save you. A name can't save a marriage, can't save a house from sale or a boy from the bottom of a lake. Diane in the ambulance, Diane not crying, keeping calm. Diane following the paramedic's instructions as the ambulance navigates country roads and the paramedic measures Michael's blood pressure. Diane Maddox, not Starling, and it's never too late to change a thing, except sometimes it is, pressing the damp cloth to the head of the man she loves or loved. Some days, let's face it, she's not sure. Blood pooling beneath the cloth, the forehead an awfully vascular area, the paramedic says, worse than it looks, which Diane takes to mean looks worse than it is, though she can't be sure. There will be stitches, though she hopes against concussion, against brain injury, against anything permanent, because in all fairness, can the girl who said in sickness and in health still speak for Diane at 33? Say Michael slips into a coma or spends his life in diapers drinking through a straw. Does the Diane who said, I do, love this man enough to wipe him another 50 years? And how to love a man who's made it clear, if not in words, then in scowls and sighs, in the way he picks strings from the frayed cuffs of his jeans, that he'd rather her not have their kid. Does she love Michael enough to stay? Does she love herself enough to leave? She doesn't know, knows only that Michael's blood is real and warm and won't stop rising from his head. The ambulance brakes, the doors open, and she breathes. The hospital is not what she was expecting. Small and beige, the building looks less like a hospital than a bank someone dropped onto an acre in the woods. Gently, Diane is pushed aside by a nurse at the curb. Michael lowered into a wheelchair and asked to hold the cloth to his own head. Of all the fears Diane has ever known, fear of flying, of snakes, of seeing the sticks minus sign become a plus, never has she known a fear like watching her husband's face paint the water red. The paramedic pushes the wheelchair forward. The nurse holds the door open for Michael to be pushed through, and Diane follows, feeling useless. Inside, the waiting room is empty, the floor a checkerboard. The woman at the front desk is rude. The hallways are hot. The x-ray room is cold. Then Michael is on a table, and she is at his side. The betadine goes on, and Michael winces, his forehead orange. The needles go in, and she has to look away. She holds his hand. The next time she looks, 8 Frankensteinian stitches hold his head together. They fill the gap between eyebrow and hairline, as though Michael's left eyebrow has an eyebrow of its own. Then the x-rays are in, and all is well. Good enough for this country doctor anyway, they're told, though Michael gives Diane a look that says, when we get home, I'm getting a second opinion. Not that they can afford a second opinion. What with a mortgage they can hardly handle on a house worth half what they paid in 2007, 4 maxed out credit cards, Diane's student loans, which no matter how hard she ignores them, are not exactly going anywhere. Still, she's glad to see her husband talking, smiling. Mostly, though, she's just happy she won't have to change his diapers till death do them part. That said, there is a diaper she wouldn't mind changing in less than 7 months. This love for a thing unborn, a thing that isn't even yet a thing. How to explain this love to her husband? She promised him she'd never want a child, and she'd meant it at the time. The mistake wasn't getting pregnant. The mistake was making a promise that was never hers to keep. The doctor scrubs his hands. A nurse will be with them shortly to discuss care and cleaning, he says, then dries his hands and leaves. Michael is still on the table, lying down. His eyes are on her middle, as though he can see beyond her waist into the womb. We're keeping it, she wants to say, but doesn't. Not yet. She's not religious, but she is superstitious. It seems bad luck to fight about the pregnancy today, as though doing so might invite the spirit of the dead boy into her, might curse her with the baby born blue-lipped without breath. If fates are steered by thoughts, by words, the least that she can do on this day is keep quiet. So she lets her husband hold her hand. She smiles, and there are many, many things she does not say. Okay, and I think I will stop reading there. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jamie. That was wonderful.
Oh, thanks so much.
Always great to hear somebody read their work aloud, and with the beautiful language in this book, it just really shines through. If anyone has questions for Jamie about either lake life or the writing life or anything involving Barry when he was here, or anything at all that he might be able to answer, just go ahead and type what you've got into the chat. I'll keep an eye on it and I can moderate that. See, Isabel Drobnik says that was amazing already. So if anyone has any questions or comments, just let us know there. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for some other things, let's see, here we go. What made the book marketable? Why do you think it's garnered such success? Because it's good, of course, but what else might you say to that, Jamie?
That's a great question, and it's a tough question. I don't know. And, okay, so success is relative, I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult question. I think you have to be careful about what you call success. I think if you're able to write every day and you're able to create a piece of art and you're able to put it into the world, that's success first and foremost. So sales or media attention or Times reviews, things like that, I think are secondary first to just creating the work you want without compromises and putting it out there and being able to, with sort of a sense of authenticity or integrity or whatever you want to call it, being able to share your vision. But in terms of, I don't know. I mean, I feel so fortunate and so lucky, writing a really sad novel about people who lose kids and then have to watch another child die didn't exactly seem like the most upmarket fiction idea, and I didn't know how it would be received. So I've been thrilled to get really positive blurbs and really fine reviews. And I don't know, I kind of ignore sales figures because they make me anxious, but I guess I know it's doing much better than my first book, and I'll take it. So I think, but to speak to what you might really be asking with that question, which is, how do you know when writing something if you want it to be successful? I don't think there's necessarily a formula. I think you just have to write what you want to write. And depending on a lot of things like timing and luck, it either will or won't be received in the way you want it to be. But I think first and foremost, you just got to write the thing your heart wants you to write more than try to write toward a specific market.
That's great. Thanks, Jamie. I'm seeing a bunch of questions come up here. One that came up in particular that could affect us all, but I know has affected the process of the release and distribution of Lake Life is looks like Cassidy Okanika is asking, has COVID affected your writing process or publishing deadlines or publishing in general? How has that had an impact on you?
Yeah, COVID has definitely changed the lives of authors. First and foremost, we all lost our summer book tours. That was kind of a hard pill to swallow. I was gonna head up the East Coast, and then I had events at Harvard and in New York City, and then down through Ohio, and then all around the Florida Panhandle. And that's been hard. I've been able to do a lot of those virtually, but I love doing the events because I get to meet readers and meet people, and I love just getting to meet smart people and hear what they're reading and increase the list of books I want to read. In terms of actually writing, I think it's been different for every author. For me, my entire writing, I'm kind of a creature of habit, so my whole schedule is upended. I would take my daughters to school in the morning, I would write all day, I would pick my daughters up, we would have family dinner, and then I would teach at night, and then I would work out after all my family went to sleep. And now I can't go to the gym because of COVID. My kids and my wife and I are all trying to work from home at the same time. My writing schedule is a nightmare, and I've found myself writing now late at night, which I hadn't done since I was grad school. And it turns out when you're in your 40s, it's a lot harder to stay up late than it is when you're in your 20s. So I'm sort of relearning how to live, how to make time for writing. But I think the important thing is during a time like this, you have to be kind to yourself and patient to yourself and give yourself some grace and just recognize that what we're going through is something that most people never go through in a lifetime. And if you're not as, quote unquote, productive as you were before the pandemic, that's okay. And you have to give yourself permission to not necessarily be as productive.
Yeah, that's good advice. I keep trying to remind myself of all of that. Um, and of course, if it weren't for COVID, we'd probably all be in the college chapel right now, enjoying this as well. So it's affecting us tonight. A lot of people, again, are asking great questions. I'm going to try to get to as many of these as I can. Madeline Prado has asked, and I can answer this very quickly, where can we find the entire book to read? And the answer, of course, to that is you can find it at pretty much any bookstore, independent bookstores online. And certainly we're going to have copies of it too in the bookstore on campus in the Shipyard very soon. Let's see, got a lot of questions here. Jamie Bell is asking, do you have plans right now for future novels? Are you working on those?
Yeah, so I've got 2 books in the works. I keep telling people, it took me 9 years to write this novel, which is true, but it's also misleading because in those 9 years, I also finished a whole new story collection and a number of essays. So I do have a finished collection, tentatively titled Sons and Daughters, and it has 16 stories. They've all appeared in magazines and journals, the most recent one in the American Scholar. And my agent really likes that. And so I'm currently writing the beginning of a novel, what they call a partial. And we're hoping to sell those as kind of another 2-book deal. I can't really talk yet about the novel. It's still very much in its beginnings, but I will say that, the one thing I told myself is after writing Lake Life that I was not going to write another novel with all these viewpoints, that 6 was too many, and that I was just going to pick one point of view and write that novel that way, and then somehow the new book I'm working on has 12. So I can say that it's a book with a lot of characters, and it's also it'll be my first novel set entirely in Florida. So now that I've lived here 9 years, I'm beginning to feel like I can call this my hometown, and so it'll be a Florida novel. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I look forward to that. Maggie North, who was in Advanced Fiction earlier, you may have seen her there, is asking, and I'm curious about this too, do you have a favorite character in Lake Life? One you're closest to, maybe?
Oh, wow. That's so hard. I think as I wrote each chapter, when I was writing that character, this is going to sound so cheesy, but you hear actors talk about method acting where they feel like they are the character and they get into that character's headspace. And I think that can be true for writers too, where you kind of method write yourself into the character's psyche and have a lot of fun with them. So I think there's aspects of me in all of the characters. I totally resonate with Thad's desire to be a writer. I think even though Thad's 30, he still is a little childlike, a little bit like a teenager at times in his mentality. He kind of wants to be a poet, but he's not yet really putting in the work to be a poet. And that I can relate to that as when I was younger and thinking about wanting to be a writer, but wasn't really writing yet. I can definitely relate to Jake's drive in being a painter. I can totally relate to Lisa's parenting of the children. A lot of people have asked me, how do you write Lisa and her love for her sons that well? And that's the only question I sometimes bristle at a little, because I'm like, I don't think a father's love has to be all that different. I have kids, I love them. I think the expression of that love can be very much the same. So, I love my own daughters, and I just gave that love to Lisa for her sons. The only character I sometimes had trouble writing was Richard, the father. And that's interesting because the two stories that I wrote early on were from Richard's point of view. So I wrote the novel thinking he would kind of be my protagonist. And in the end, he got the least page space. I think early on, I was a little mad at him because each of these characters in this novel has a secret. And Richard's secret is that he's had this affair. And I didn't understand why he would do that. And I was kind of mad at him for cheating on Lisa. And it took me a while to get into his head. Once I did, I found empathy for him again. And I can't really write a character well unless I empathize with them. But yeah, so maybe writing his sections were the hardest because I didn't quite relate to his point of view. But other than that, the other 5, I think I all love equally.
That's good. That's interesting about Richard. Yet somehow I think I understand that. I don't know. Not that I notice it from reading it, but I just think he could be a difficult person to understand. There's a question that has come up a couple of times. The first person to ask was Shaina Hidalgo, and then Heather Thompson was asking about this as well. I hadn't even noticed this, but at the beginning of, I think it was chapter 4, the ambulance hospital chapter, it sounds like the wife, I guess it's Diane, is referred to by both her first and last name in a way that other characters don't always have that last name. Why is that the case there? And does it have anything to do with kind of the nature of identity in the book?
Yeah, thank you. That's such a great question. Yeah, chapter 4 is a little unlike the others. It's a little experimental. It's my best shot at, I'll never be Virginia Woolf, although she's probably my favorite writer, but it's my best shot at something approaching a kind of stream of conscious. And I think what that chapter is about, what Diane's character is very much about, is the fact that, what she and Jake have in common is they've married into this family. They're not starlings, but they are, they're part of the family without being born into the family. They're the only ones who are kind of there by choice. And when she and Michael married, she chose to keep her own last name. She's Diane Maddox, not Diane Starling. And now that she is pregnant and thinking about this child she will have, what name her child will take, this thing that's happened to Michael and what her responsibility will be to him, what her responsibility to him is now that she's a mother, or she will be a mother, and he doesn't seem to want to be a father. I think it is very much wrapped up in these ideas of identity. So we see her thinking about herself, and she's Diane Maddox, and then as that moves on, it drops away, and then she's just Diane, and then by the end, as she's kind of chilled out, it drops back down to the pronoun she. And so it's kind of like this moment of heightened tension and this inner monologue she has with herself, and as the focus, as she allows herself to take the focus off of herself and kind of return to the present at hand, you see the name, kind of gradually, dissolving away from that full name to just she.
That's interesting. I'm glad that came up because, like I said, I hadn't really thought about it, but that's a really smart take on that. Lindsay Norman, our Associate Dean of Students, had a question, and that was, what's the best thing you think you've read in the past month?
Mm. Yeah, I answered this question earlier for the undergrad class. I would say it's tied. I really love this new novel by the writer Peter Cameron called What Happens at Night that was published by Catapult. He published a novel years ago called The Weekend, and that book was really helpful for me in writing my own book. I wanted to write a novel with the compression of an entire weekend, and someone had told me, oh, this other writer did that. And so it was a really good learning experience to see how you could, write a 300-page book, but just set it over the course of a few days. The other book I started and haven't read yet is Lydia Millet's new novel, The Children's Bible. She's one of my favorite writers. Her last collection, Fight No More, is one of my favorite books of the last 20 years. And the new novel, which was just shortlisted for the National Book Award last week, I say I haven't finished it because I only read the first couple pages, and it was one of those books that was so good, I had to put it down, not out of jealousy, but out of pure awe and admiration, and with the realization that if I read too deep into it, I might not be able to give my own project its full attention. And I'm not one of those writers who normally says I can't read while I write. I'm always reading, but every once in a while, there'll be a book that I have to just set aside to read in a future year, just because for whatever reason, whether it's voice or tone or something, it's so good. I don't want to accidentally steal from it or mimic it in my own work, but I know it's going to be beautiful. So yeah, both those books I recommend.
Thanks so much. And I'm going to have to write more of those down. I'm just to let everyone know out there zooming in, students, I'm posting the link right now in the chat for the survey that you can fill out within the next 7 days. And once that's done, we'll be able to take the reports from that and get you the CE credit for having attended this evening. But in the meantime, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Let's see, there was an interesting question that came up, and I think you started to get at this a little bit earlier, but someone, let's see if I can find, someone was asking, yeah, Caitlin Horn was asking, what is it that made you want to write this particular novel, and maybe even those stories you mentioned earlier that really started it off?
Yeah, so in terms of the stories that started it off, I think that, some writers say write what you know, and some say write what you don't know. For me, I've always said write what scares you. I write toward my greatest fears. And in 2005, when I started those stories, my wife and I were contemplating pregnancy, and my biggest fear was, how do you be a father? Or if you have a child, how do you keep that child safe? What if something happens to the child? And I think my way of tackling that fear was by writing a story about a couple who the worst does happen to them. They lose a child. Years later, I was with my family on a lake in Middle Georgia, Lake Oconee, and I saw what was almost a tragedy. It did not become a tragedy. The boy was fine, but there was a near tragedy, something similar to what I wrote about in the first chapter. And I was haunted for years, about what could have been and what I would have done if I had seen that, if I would have jumped in and tried to save him, and how far I would have gone. And at some point, I realized both those things that were haunting me were two halves of the same story. And I wanted to write this novel about this couple who 35 years ago did lose a child, and now 35 years later has seen this other family's child taken from them, and the way in which that new tragedy triggers the memories of the old tragedy and changes the whole nature of this weekend that they thought they were going to spend as kind of like a beautiful family reunion at this place they loved, how it becomes instead a weekend full of exposed secrets and fighting and politics and all the fun stuff that happens whenever you get a family together for 3 days in a row in this political climate. So the book's about a lot of things, but it's if nothing else, it's very much about the secrets that we keep from each other as family, because I think we all fear that the love we share is conditional. And the secrets are a way of making sure we love each other. And, you know, one of the most interesting things you can do in a family is tell your secrets and then test to see if that love really was unconditional. And that's what this novel is basically about. But I'm happy to keep answering questions for as long as you want. I have nowhere to be, so feel free to, there's no rush on my end anyway.
Okay. We'll see if any, got anything else here. Looks like, I think a lot of writers have a good answer for this, but Madeline Prado was asking, do you have any plans to turn your books into movies?
Oh, so, well, this has been kind of fun. One of the neat things about my books is I have had the opportunity to be translated into a number of languages, and the books have, by and large, at least the collection has done a lot better in other countries than it has here in America. So I was lucky enough that one of the stories in the collection, How to Help Your Husband Die, was turned into a stage play in Greece. And I didn't get to fly to Greece to see it, but I've seen a lot of pictures and I've talked to the director and one of the actors, and it seems like it was a really beautiful adaptation. And I was so happy to see that. And then a French filmmaker is making a film version of The End of Aaron, which is one of the stories from the collection. Ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think it would be a dream to see the novel made into a film. Haven't had any interest yet, but yeah, if of the 160 of you, or however many, if any of you know people in Hollywood, screenwriters, actors, producers, people with bags of money, send them a copy of Lake Life and tell them it's for sale. Sure, I would love to see a film made of it.
Well, there was one more question that I want to address really quickly, and I'm interested in this as well. And this is another one from Shaina Hidalgo earlier. She was asking, why did you? I mean, of course, multiple perspectives, but why did you decide to go with third-person narration in Lake Life?
That's a great question. I don't think there's not a right answer to this. It could have definitely been done either way. For me, I would have really struggled to do 6 first-person voices and make them completely distinguishable from one another. I was really afraid of them sounding too much alike. I think what you get with third person is you kind of get the best of both worlds. So, for instance, with third person, I was able to disambiguate the points of view by through the selection of detail and word choice. So, for example, in Michael's section, he uses the word maybe, and that was a conscious choice. I know this sounds like a really nitpicky little thing, but he would never use the word perhaps. He would use the word maybe, whereas his mother, Lisa, might use the word perhaps. Lisa and Thad are going to have the most poetic language. Jake's going to have the best imagery because he's a painter. Richard's going to have a number of math and physics similes and figurative language because he's a physicist. Lisa is going to notice the birds around them because she's an ornithologist. So picking out what they see and the words they use can really help define their points of view. And then what third person also gives you is we have this great little tool called free indirect discourse or free indirect style, which means with a third person narrative voice, I can kind of zoom in and give you a line that's really the line as they would say it if they were in first. And then when I need to, I can back off and give you a slightly more lyrical, poetic passage through the third person narration. If I'm in first, I'm forced the whole time, specifically through just the word choices they would use, which is fine when there's one character, but when there's 6, then I feel like it's easier for the 6 points of view to kind of bleed into one another. So I think it could be done. And I'm not at the point yet where I could have pulled off 6 first persons. In terms of the verb tense, originally, the whole first draft of this novel was in past tense. And then I found that because so much of this novel also involves flashback, I was writing the present scenes in past and introducing the flashbacks in past perfect, and it felt really baggy and all just too much in the past. And so when I revised into the second draft, I put the novel in present tense with the flashbacks in simple past, and something about doing it that way, everything felt like it was beginning to click at the sentence level.
Oh, that's a great answer. It's something I always wonder about, is kind of how we make choices like that. Um, Jamie, you're very generous with your time. I think we're about out of time for the evening here, but I do want to thank you again so much for coming or for zooming, as I might say, and doing this. It's been wonderful. Lake Life has been a great read, and again, we're going to have copies in the bookstore very soon. And as I said before, because of the book plates, there'll be signed copies when we get those ready. And so, thanks so much, Jamie. Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. And that again, the link to the survey is right in the chat. I think Shannon Rainey may have one question for you, or Lily Calhoun if she's here. And that is, it's a question we ask of all our visiting writers, and that is, what are your thoughts on Beyonce?
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, wait, you know what's funny? I was just up at Barry this spring, and I think when Dr. Meek read from her new poetry book, she got this question, and I totally forgot. I forgot this is the question. And so I came completely unprepared. I mean, she's Beyonce. She's a genius, and she has one of the best voices of our generation. Yeah, I have, I have nothing but admiration.
That's good. That's good. I think that started with Jericho Brown, and it continued on with everyone. So glad to hear.
Has there ever been anyone who just said like, no, they don't like Beyonce?
I don't think so.
That's good.
I mean, some people have said maybe they don't listen to her music so regularly, but I think everybody has respected Beyonce. So yeah, you join our prestigious club. Thanks again so much, Jamie. Thanks everybody. You're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat here. Beautiful work. Thank you for sharing, and so forth. So thanks again, and y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Will. Thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.